I don't know if a block of blue cheese really constitute as a salad. Today I'm going to make a recipe for blue cheese salad squares from Better Homes and Gardens cookbook from the 1960s. Then I'll do my own modern interpretation of the same dish, try both, and see how I feel. Let's get started. Before I get started, I just have to say that the blue cheese square recipe is in the seafood, egg, and cheese salad section of the book. Cheese salad, just let that sit for a minute. To start, it says soften cream cheese, we've got that. Add mayonnaise and lemon juice. So the recipe just says beat till light. I assume that just means until combined, lightly fluffy, I'm not really sure. This is what happens when there's no real directions, but that feels fine. Stir in the blue cheese. Now it says to add some chopped celery. That's like salad-y, and salt, crucial. So far this recipe is really easy, which I appreciate. Fold in a half cup of heavy cream, whipped. You know, this is whipped cream, but it's not like whipped cream you would eat for dessert. There's no sugar in it. And now it just says to fold together. It says pour into a tray and then freeze until firm. I'm anticipating that this is gonna be pretty intensely flavored. I know there were a lot of companies in the 50s that were really pushing mayonnaise forward recipes, which this definitely is. Mayonnaise is a repeatedly used ingredient. I think this is as good as it's gonna get. I'm gonna put this in the freezer, let it set, and then see how it comes out. Okay, so I've got my frozen blue cheese. It's kind of like a brick of blue cheese. I'm curious how it's gonna if it'll pop out. I've cut all the way around it, but I kind of doubt it's gonna come out. Hey, okay. That it looks like a brick of cream cheese. The recipe wants me to cut it into 1-inch cubes and serve with assorted fruits. So I guess that's the salad part of it, like a fruit salad maybe. I thought it would be kind of fun and retro to add a slice of pineapple on the bottom and then the blue cheese and then kind of top it with fruit. The recipe doesn't specify how many blue cheese squares to serve at once, but because it's so rich, I feel like one is kind of more than enough. Feels kind of bizarre to serve fruit at the beginning of the meal. Maybe it's at the end, maybe it's a nod to, the French practice of serving a cheese plate for dessert. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna make 4 more of these and then time to try them. These actually look really cute. I feel like if you saw this in a bakery as this kind of patisserie thing, you'd think it's so cute and charming. Anyone would be surprised to find out it's supposed to be a salad, but I think aesthetically, it's great. It's actually pretty good. The celery adds a really great crunch to it. Having it come out of the freezer for a few minutes, it's a really nice texture, semi-frozen, but still kind of melts in your mouth. I don't think I would necessarily serve it with fruit, the blue cheese and the strawberry together, but the blue cheese on its own, pretty good. I think the most prominent flavor here is blue cheese. It is called a blue cheese square after all. It's good though, it doesn't feel overpowering. It feels like a really nice balance. I think the cream cheese, the mayonnaise, and the whipped cream kind of takes down the intensity of blue cheese. I think if the blue cheese square was on a salad or something like that, it'd actually be wonderful. All in all, I totally think this was a success. Now that I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do, my modern take on this, I'm blue cheese has to be the star of it, right? This is all about the blue cheese. I think I'm gonna, leave the fruit behind and do something savory. Steak and blue cheese is a really good combination. It could be a blue cheese tart or something with blue cheese and a potato. Again, something to kind of take down the intensity, which I think this does really well. Something doughy and bready, something like a cheese puff, where blue cheese is incorporated, but there's still other flavors there to kind of give more depth of flavor than just blue cheese. Yeah, I think that's the direction I'm gonna go in. So I'm gonna make blue cheese gougères. It's basically a fancy French way of saying a cheese puff. The batter, the dough is basically, it's called a pâte à choux, and it's the same dough that you would use to make an eclair, a cream puff, even a churro, same kind of process. So all you have to do is add butter to a pot, some salt, and water. And you want to bring it to a boil so that the salt has dissolved and the butter has melted. The fun thing about knowing how to make pâte à choux is that like once you do, you can make all these different variations. You can go sweet, savory, take it in kind of any direction you want to. The fun thing about gougères is that you can kind of use not any type of cheese, but anything that can get kind of melty. You could use Parmesan, you can use cheddar, you could use Gruyere, you can use blue cheese. You can really flavor them in your own way. So now that my mixture is boiling, I'm just gonna take it off the heat and add flour and some black pepper. And you just stir it until it becomes this kind of like lumpy paste. The reason I'm doing this off the heat is just so it kind of comes together seamlessly without burning. Once the dough kind of comes together in a ball, you put it back on the heat and just cook it for a minute or two, kind of stirring constantly. This is just to kind of cook off that raw flour. Also, as you do this, it's gonna really form a tight ball. So the next step is to put it in the bowl of a stand mixer. You can also do this by hand, but it's pretty tiring, and that's just to take some of the heat down. If you don't do this part and add the eggs are gonna scramble and then you're gonna get like, you know, weird scrambled egg dough. So I'm just gonna add the eggs one at a time until they're fully incorporated. And it kind of looks clumpy and weird, and just trust me, it's gonna come together in a cohesive dough. And the dough looks great. I'm just gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl before adding the cheese. And with the motor running, I'm just gonna add the cheese straight into it. We just want it to get fully incorporated into the dough, and that's it, it's time to pipe them. So you don't have to use a piping bag for this, you could use a tablespoon, but for a little more precision and ease, I'm going the piping bag route. And if you're doing that, you just want a big round tip. No like fancy decorations here. I like to use a quart container just to help kind of steady the bag. Just transfer the batter, the dough, right into the bag. And then you just start piping. Pâte à choux kind of feels like somewhere between dough and batter. It can still hold its shape, but be kind of like light and airy at the same time. See all these funny tips? Like a really good trick is to just dip your finger in a little water and you can just kind of smooth it out. You can actually smooth the whole thing out. You don't have to worry about them looking perfect. They're all gonna puff up in the oven. I'm just gonna pop these in the oven. They cook really quickly. You want them to be golden brown and puffy, and that's a signal they're done. The gougères are done. Just gonna take them out of the oven. I made a few extra. And they smell so cheesy. It smells amazing. You can see like that blue cheese is really melty. It looks so good. These are really great if you're having a party. They come together so quickly. Like people walking into the smell of like warm, cheesy, bready situation is like always a good thing. Just gonna let them cool for a minute before tasting them, but I'm pretty excited. I mean, a tower of gougères all to myself. Like, what could be better? You can see the inside is this like light, airy, kind of doughy situation. It's so good. They really like melt in your mouth. I love the blue cheese in here. I've never used blue cheese in one, but the subtlety, the sharpness, it really, really works well. I think both the blue cheese squares and the gougères are really great examples of how to use blue cheese. I'm not totally sure, but I would suspect that the blue cheese squares are something you would eat at the beginning of the meal, maybe an hors d'oeuvre, an appetizer, and that's exactly what the gougère is too. So there's kind of like a nice like nod to the past, but maybe a little more modern. I think if you're not a huge blue cheese lover, you might be more into the gougères just because the blue cheese salad squares are, you know, pretty intensely blue cheese flavored, but I think they're both great options and I feel pretty inspired by both. Let me know in the comments if you like blue cheese and which one of these dishes you would try.